Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and I'm pleased to have on with me the head coach for the Wilton Warriors rather, EJ D'Annunzio. Coach, I appreciate you coming on, man.
My pleasure, Chris. I appreciate it.
Obviously, with me being in the NVL, I can only follow so much because I'm following what's happening in the Valley. But because last week was a bye week and I had gotten married the previous week, I was kind of itching, like needing to pay attention to football because I didn't the Friday before because I was getting married. So during the bye week in the NVL, I was like, all right, since I'm not busy as much, let me kind of scroll through, see some scores. And at one point, I saw the score of your game, Wilton and Greenwich. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow this. So over the next hour and a half, I was getting more and more updates, following through. And then I saw the final score. Wilton wins. They beat the number one team. And I'm like, this is awesome. And there was multiple games. You had Bunnell losing to Brookfield.
Mhm.
You had Glastonbury beating Southington. I mean, there were some games that was, and I think Massac, I think they won if I remember right. But still, there was a lot of games that happened where big teams that were ranked in the top 10 went down, and you guys started that off.
Yeah, we did. Listen, I told my kids at halftime, I said, let me tell you guys, the internet's blowing up. No one's going to believe it. They probably think it's the wrong score. I said, listen, it's 13-10, and you're gonna write the way this thing finishes. You dictate it. So I told them they're gonna give us everything they had in the second half. We had to weather the storm,
Mhm.
and we had to play. We had to execute the way we did in the first half, and if we did, we'd have a shot. And things broke our way at the end of the first half. We scored late, and that gave us a lot of momentum going into that second half. It was it was a great win for Wilton High School and the town, the community, and the school. And I'm just really proud of my kids. It was we worked hard for those 2 weeks. We had the bye week, as you said,
Mhm.
so we studied up as much as we could on them, watched a lot of film, and they don't have many flaws. It's a good football team. They're so big up front. They're physical. But we said, listen, we're going to bring it to them. We're going to lay everything on the line, and we'll see where the chips fall. So kudos to my kids. They played a really good game. My coaching staff did a great job getting our guys ready. So um, it was a great win for Wilton.
Like you said, coach, and you told me there's been some great wins that you guys have had over the last, couple years as far as against teams that maybe you have not beaten in some time. And since you took over as the head coach, I think you said it was 2018, if I remember right, when you took over for Coach Cunningham and such. What is, when you think about a game like that, right? And you've been to the playoffs, you guys have just come up short and such, but to get a win like that, not to say that it's like, okay, you guys are definitely going to get to the championship after, winning that game. Because obviously that's not on your mind. You guys are 13th right now in double M, which is only out of the eight teams, six of the eight are undefeated. You have two with one losses. You have a Northwest United team that's undefeated and outside the playoffs. So what does that tell you? But the point is, does a game like that potentially turn the page on what was, when you look just record, could have been maybe all right, we're gonna have to, this may not be our season. Does that make sense?
100%. You know, I'll go back to week three. We're 0-2. We played a good game against Massac. They're a real good team. We go to Norwalk. We score in our first two possessions. We're up 13-0. We just stopped playing football. We didn't do a good job coaching. We didn't do a good job playing. We got beat. Hats off to Norwalk. But now we're 0-2. And that's, I have never been 0-2 at Wilton. So, I told the kids, listen, this is a turning point right here. We have our rival in Richfield. Then we have Ward. Then we got a bye week. I said, listen, the only thing we can do is go 2-2. We're going to take care of our first game, which is Richfield. And I said, after we get by Richfield, we'll worry about Ward, and then we'll hit the break and see where we are. So played really well against Richfield. And we beat Ward. So that put us at 2-2. And now we have Greenwich. And as I said, we spent a lot of time on that bye week, worked the kids hard. I did give them the whole weekend off because we were a little banged up. And said to the kids, that week, I said, listen, we are in double M. It's you can't get any tougher than double M this year, right? With all the teams that are undefeated and such. So we knew we had to win this game. It wasn't, we didn't have an option. So it was definitely a huge win for us, and it means a lot, right? Puts us at 3-2. But unfortunately, we're in the FCA. So, I don't have many, I don't think I have any easy games this year. So now it's okay, you got by Greenwich. I can't take a deep breath. I got to start preparing for New Canaan. Now, if you're going to tell me New Canaan is not one of the top five teams in the state, I'm going to argue with you because I think they're really, really good. And then after that, I have Darien. So you tell me when I'm supposed to take a break and get some sleep.
Well, coach, I got to tell you, I mean, if anybody thinks that New Cane's not a top five team in the state, I mean, I got to start questioning and I think we need to drug test them because Darien, obviously New Canaan goes without saying.
Oh,
Like you mentioned, you got New Canaan, Darien, Fairfield, Ludlow, and
yeah,
coincidentally enough, all three of those teams are an L, which one of our
yeah,
teams in the NBL, Naugatuck, they're
yeah,
they're undefeated. I think they're the only undefeated team in Class L. They're number one, followed behind Darien's number two, New Canaan's number three, Fairfield Ludlow's number six. So like you talk about some of those gauntlet teams, and I saw Darien last year when they were in a down year, quote unquote, down year, and I came back after that game. Naugatuck lost. They put up 42 points on Noggy, which had a fantastic year. And I came back like this team is not rebuilding. They're not down
no, no,
with the
no.
two, with the two twin towers. They've got a platoon system. It's crazy. But like like you said, coach, you can't take a breath. You can't even enjoy the game. It's like after the game's over, you're like, woohoo, go crazy. Then 2 minutes later, all right, guys, everybody stop. We got to go play now for the next one. We got New Canaan. They're not easy.
No, you're exactly right. And when I spoke to Andy Grant last year, I mean, listen, they just fell short losing to New Canaan in a championship game.
Yeah.
His season turned around right after our game last year. We beat them last year um, at Darien. Tough, hard fought game as they always are. And he said that was his turning point. He got his guys rallied around his guys. Rolap was young at that point. He was a sophomore.
Mhm.
Like you said, he's got the two big kids, the two tight ends. And, they went on a roll after our game. So that's the thing with the FCAC. You have a good game, you play well. And depending upon what you have next on your schedule, that could be the impetus to, keep you going forward.
Mhm.
But as I said, having the gauntlet of Greenwich, Darien, and New Canaan, and or not in that order, but I did something wrong somewhere. I ticked somebody off, so I gotta figure out who I ticked off and make it right.
Coach, when you think about kind of the big picture here of being able to get the win as you did, but us talking about the next three games that you have, I mean, what's it like as far as talking with the kids? Because I've equated this, and I don't know if it's a fair one or not, but the FCAC reminds me of the SEC because there's so much talent. Obviously, the offenses are prolific, the defenses, I mean, what I saw with Darien, and I've only seen a couple FCAC schools broadcasting. Darien defensively, what they were able to do adjustment wise, pre snap, post snap. I don't see that in the NVO other than maybe one or two teams. Other than that, I don't see that. So schematically, it's like they're at another level, right? So with that comparison, coach, do you think it's a fair one? I know it's college to high school, but do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, listen, it's funny you brought that up because all week long I was talking about Vanderbilt and Alabama, and if Vanderbilt can go beat Alabama, why can't we beat Greenwich, right?
Yep.
So listen, there are a couple really good leagues in Connecticut for sure, and I think the FCAC is definitely one of them. I am I am fortunate enough. I have 13 coaches on my staff. Considering freshman, JV, and varsity, but
Mhm.
I got a big number of coaches. A lot of teams in NVL obviously don't have anywhere near that. So just the coaching level alone is big, right? I can have a line coach, I can have a secondaries coach, I can have a wide receivers coach, I can have special teams coach,
Mhm.
which helps obviously. And when you talk about the skill level of the kids, I mean, you could turn on any channel these days on Saturday afternoon, and you're going to see somebody who's coming out of the FCAC.
Yep.
I have my big lineman playing at Wake Forest. He's starting as a well, he goes back and forth. He played some center, some guard. Matty Golbin doing a great job for them.
Yep.
I have another wide receiver who's playing for Cornell at Parker Woodring. And then, there's so many guys. Drew Pine from New Canaan. New Canaan's got guys in the NFL. It's an amazing league for sure. And when you play against these kids, 3 years ago, I'm playing against Drew Pine, and all of a sudden you see him playing for Notre Dame and Arizona State. You're like, wow, I didn't know the kid was that good. But yeah, that's the fun part of it. So, and again, listen, the coaches that are across the way from me that I'm competing against, the Lou Marinellis of the world and Coach Morello from Greenwich, and the list goes on and on. Joey D from St. Joe's, Mars at Trumbull. Sometimes I got to pinch myself and say, what am I doing here? I don't belong out here with these guys. So the level of competition is fantastic. The coaching is great.
Hmm.
And not taking away anything from any other league. It's just it is a really good competitive league, and there are no easy games on my schedule, and that's just the way it is in the FCAC.
How are you able to with the kids after a game like Greenwich? And I think in some ways, I think it's good that you're facing the teams that you are to follow because I think in a lot of ways the kids, not to disparage away from other teams, but there's a big drop off from the three teams that you have, and then let's say it's maybe a team that's not having a great year, right? And I feel like that's kind of the game where you could fall into upset mode, quote unquote, right? Because then the kids won't get up for that game because like, oh, we'll blow them out by 40, and then you find out, well, it's a little different. So in a game that you got coming up with New Canaan and such, do you feel like there's a little bit less of like me saying like, hey, put everything back into order now because we got New Canaan up next. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, if you were to ask me if I would rather play a team that was, you know, 1-4, and have to get my guys up and worry about a letdown, I'd probably choose that over New Canaan for sure. What I will say is this: what people don't realize is that when you're playing teams like you mentioned, the Greenwiches, the Dariens, the New Canaans, and you play them back to back to back, um, the injury factor comes into play. Um, you know, I'm not saying you don't have injuries in other games, but there's more of a possibility of my guys getting banged up against the Greenwich and a New Canaan than maybe a team that may not be as good or as big. You know,
Hmm.
when I first walked out on that field on Friday night, I'm looking at number 9, their defensive end, who they have listed at 6'6", 240. I mean,
Jesus.
that kid looked like he should be playing college football now. And I'm like, how is my 5'11" guard supposed to block that kid when he pulls, And
Look.
it takes a toll on you, right? On my
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that you have to say, I wish if they were spaced out a little more, I'd feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues. And the other thing is, I hear you. I get it. It's this. It can't be considered a trap game, right? If my guys aren't up for New Canaan, then they're not getting up for anybody. So,
Hmm.
um, it's going to be tough. They are, they're averaging about 8 points yielding on defense. Their defense is phenomenal.
Hmm.
They have a defensive coordinator there. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Chris Silvestri. He was an all, what do they call it? Gatorade Player of the Year in Connecticut. The guy was unbelievable. He played. That was on offense, and now he's coaching defense. He's just phenomenal. Lou does a great job with the team, and they are as sound as you will find a football team. And
Hmm.
as I watch film, I'm like, oh, so where am I going to get these points from? And they just don't have weaknesses. And I'm not talking about just defense; it's offense, it's defense, it's special
Everywhere.
teams.
Yeah.
You got to play a flawless game, and you got to be really good to just to be in a game with them. So it's going to be a challenge.
Well, like you said, and I remember when Naugatuck played against New Canaan a couple years ago when they had Blake Stone at quarterback, and I think they put up 12 points on them. New Canaan, I think, won the championship that year. Go figure, because they win, it feels like every year.
Every year.
But again, I knew going up against them because Nagy had to go to New Canaan, and it was a dogfight, like no pun intended. And I remember talking with a couple of the New Canaan like people that I knew in the area from coaches and such, and I was like, "Hey, what'd you think of Naugatuck?" And they were impressed because again, coming from the valley, you think, all right, very simple this, simple that. New Canaan is just going to run all over them. Well, Nagy put up a fight. Nagy didn't win, but they represented the league well. And I think, like you said, going up against these teams in the FCAC consistently, I kind of equated to like the Lions, where I heard a stat today or last week, because obviously my team, the Dallas Cowboys, got their butts handed to them by the Lions at a
They
score of,
did.
was it 50 to 7, 9, whatever. Any team that plays the Lions the following week, they lose because it's such a physical game, like Baltimore with the Ravens, physical game. And you've got back to back to back to back with Greenwich previously, physical games. The war of attrition, just like these are high school kids. These are not pros. They're high school kids.
Right. That's exactly right, Chris. And I left practice today. I have two guys that I'm waiting on a phone call from the doctor how the MRI went. One kid had a CAT scan. So yeah, you're 100% right. Listen, I'm sorry to hear about your Cowboys.
It's okay.
I don't know. I don't know
Just
how
think,
long you're going to have that coach for, but
why
I
not
hear
long?
you. The Lions are physical. Greenwich is physical. The Canaan's physical. Darien's physical.
Yep.
But this is what it is. This is what the FCAC is, and like I said, kids love it. They love the challenge. And listen, going into that game last week, I said I think maybe 80 people thought you're going to win the game, and
Hmm.
it was you guys, the guys that are here in the locker room, and we believed. But it's now you got to get right back up for a new Canaan team that's coming to us, thankfully.
Hmm.
But they can't afford any losses. They have to win as well. So it's going to be real interesting, and it'll be a lot of fun. I love coaching against Lou. He does a great job, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to coach against him.
Now, I was talking with one of your buddies, the basketball coach on the boys' side, Coach Guriak, and I love that guy to death. He and I, during basketball season, he brought up to me something as far as with the brackets, divisions, all that. Wanted to almost do like an NCAA tournament style for high school basketball. I thought that was legit. It'll probably never happen, but it's
Yep,
awesome to talk about. But
sure.
anyway, he told me how much energy that you have. And even though you've got a little bit of salt with the hair, I could just tell you got a lot of energy, which is good. And is that something that you feel like basically what I'm saying is, are you going to continue on coaching for years to come? Because it seems like you got the energy. It doesn't seem like anything's bringing you down where you're like, I hate life. I hate everything. Seems like you're just a happy guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'll give you this. So I work in the school,
Hmm.
and I have a student who pulls on my shirt and says to me, "Hey, coach, I got to ask you a question." I say, "Yeah, what's that?" He said, "Do you ever get mad? Do you ever have bad days?" And I said, "Chris," I said, "No, um, I don't have bad days. I don't get mad. I love what I do." And I kind of equated it with, I told him, I said, people want to be rich when they get older, right? They want to have a lot of money. I
Hmm.
said, but you know what? I'm rich. And he goes, well, you are, coach? I go, yeah, I'm rich. I said, you know why? I said, because I'm doing something that I love, right? I can't buy you, an ice cream cone, but I can tell you what, I am so, fulfilled inside with what I do. Um, Coaching as well as being a paraprofessional in school.
Hmm.
And yeah, I do bring it on the field. Joel's right. Joel coached me for 1 year. We had a blast. I'm up and down the sidelines. I'll tell you, well, I haven't been up and down the sidelines the last 2 days because during the Greenwich game, the last play of the game was on the sideline across from me.
Oh boy.
And if they got the first down, there was still some time left. They could maybe try for a field goal to tie it. So
Hmm.
I start to sprint down. Well, my a slow jog down my sidelines, and all of a sudden I hear a pop.
Oh
It was
no.
my calf. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm on the IR right now. I could barely move. But listen, if I don't bring the energy every day, why do I expect my kids to bring it? These kids have sat in a classroom for 6 hours. I'm looking
Mhm.
for them to give me 2.5 hours of high energy, paying attention. And if I'm one of those guys that stands there, just barking out orders, hand in my pocket, that's not going to do anything for them. I'm not that type of guy.
Mhm.
I get as much as I can out of every day of life because you never know what tomorrow brings. So that's what I do. And I think the kids appreciate it. I told one of the coaches the other day, I said, listen, I hope you don't get mad at me. I said, but when we win a football game, we'll go into our little pile there on the 30-yard line, and I'll get the kids excited. We jump up and down, and that's it, and we go on our way. And I said, I hope I don't mean any disrespect to you. I said, but you know what? If we don't appreciate and celebrate the little wins,
Mhm.
what's it all about? He's like, no, don't be silly, coach. You do what you do. So I listen, life's too short, right?
Mhm.
And I am blessed to be doing something I absolutely love. As long as my wife, doesn't kick me out of the house because I'm spending too much time, watching film and spending time in practice, I'll be doing it for as long as I can. So I love it, and I hope to be here for a while.
So what you're telling me is if your team has a delay of game or a holding penalty, you're not going to be screaming or getting mad. You're just going to be smiling from ear to ear.
No, no. Um,
Just
you
checking.
know, yeah. My kids will tell you I'm pretty tough on them. I like to be one of those guys that's a positive yeller, but
Hmm.
listen, you make a physical mistake, that's life, man. I haven't met a perfect person yet. You know,
Neither have I,
no,
other than
but
other than
you
my
you
wife.
you you jump off sides, or you have a fumble because you're carrying the ball in the wrong hand as you're going out of bed. Those types of things I'll get on you for, but
Yeah.
physical mistakes, it happens to all of us, and that's just we say next play, and that's all how we go.
Well, you know what's funny though about that, and it's not funny, but I guess looking at where we are now in 2024, being able to coach hard and being able to like being a coach, you've had to evolve because of where we are and today's society and everything else, being able to do that is difficult for a variety of issues, right? And I tell coaches that I know and that, I become friends with or acquaintances or whatever, I have so much respect because being able to juggle the amount of things that you have to between the on the field, the off the field. Sadly, there are some parents who make it very, very difficult for various reasons. So you have that. You've got all the other stuff, like being able to do that and still get as much as you can out of them as human beings and players. You know, I respect it. I really do. It's tough.
It is. It's funny you said that because I just told you before I came on.
Mm.
I'd been away from the game for over 20 years, right? So I tell everybody, coaching back then was hard, but it was easy. And what I mean by that is when you went to scout somebody, you had to go in person with pen and paper and write down number 36 is 6'2" and is aggressive and blah, blah, blah. So that was the hard part. When you wanted to call for a meeting, you had to get on the phone and call all your coaches and say, hey, you call 10 guys and you call 10 guys. And that's how you got meetings, together.
Mm-hmm.
So that was hard. The easy part was coaching. The easy part was dealing with the kids and getting them out there. Now it's like the reverse. Yeah. So now to me, the easy part is I have Huddle. I can watch every game on Huddle. I don't have to leave my house. If I want to have a meeting, I send out an email, right? I can, send out things on Twitter, whatever. But the hard part is now monitoring the kids on social media. The hard part is more of the parents. The hard part is, making sure that they're doing the right things in school. And there's so much more going on now that, it's been the reverse. So it's not easy to coach these days, but, I think if, I've heard a lot of coaches say, well, it's different and you got to be, you just be you. And as long as you use common sense and you love what you're doing, you love the kids and you want the most out of them and the best out of them, it'll work out. You'll do the right thing.
Coach, I really appreciate you coming on. I could talk to you forever, but we're running out of time. But hey, best of luck with what you have coming up. And hopefully, maybe I'll see you down the road somewhere at some point.
Chris, listen, I appreciate it. Congrats on a wedding again.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, it's guys like you and other guys that do this stuff for, Connecticut football and all sports. It's really great because I'll tell you, I'm on there and I'm on Twitter and I'm watching what you write about your NVL and I'm watching the other guys, what they write. I know the kids look at it, the kids love it and enjoy it. And listen, I'm not going to be rich. You're not going to be rich, but we really appreciate everything you do. So keep it up. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit. And hopefully, we can have some banter going on between not just you and Joel. Now we can do some.
Hey, you know what? That really means a lot. And I appreciate that, Coach. Thank you very much. That wrap things up here on the CT Sports Talent Show. Next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. Enjoy finding them all. Enjoy your day, everybody, and be well.